Hello, everyone. This is Milton Herring with Maximizing Moments with Milton, and I've got my good friend Frank Thomas on the line with me today. And we wanted to set some time apart to really talk about how to navigate our principles versus our feelings, and what that means for our success, what that means for our destination, what that means for the path we walk out for our lives, and how to best move through those two areas. And I'm excited to hear what Frank has to talk about. But before we do, Frank, would you just take a second there, a minute, and introduce yourself to the audience as well?
Yeah, my name is Frank Thomas. Entrepreneur, author, speaker, jack of all trades, master of none. Hey, always working to improve, but excited about sharing the things, the lessons that I've learned in life that I believe can help others, and always looking forward to connecting with like-minded people such as yourself, Milton. And I think that we have so much to offer, and really looking forward to today's conversation, and hoping that it blesses some people who take the time to listen.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today. We won't take all night tonight, but I think the conversation is going to be really well. So I want to just really jump into it. We had this conversation briefly, Frank, about what's been on your heart and some things you've been studying and some things you've been sharing with other people. Let's just jump into it. Let's start digging into some meat about principles versus feelings. Share your thoughts for me.
Yeah, I always say that, obviously God gave us feelings for a reason. They're not useless. They're actually useful. However, he also created the universe with principles and laws, like the law of gravity. I spend a fair amount of time, just meditating, just thinking. I listen to different pastors, different sermons, reading books. And one of the things that just really, popped up for me probably in the last, 4 to 6 weeks has been, this concept of principles and feelings. And what I mean by that is that we oftentimes allow our feelings, our emotions to dictate the actions that we take. For instance, you wake up in the morning, and if you're tired, you hit the snooze button, and that can make you late for work, which has even greater consequences sometimes.
Right.
But we know if we get up, we'll be on time. We'll be better prepared to handle any distractions that might come up that day. And so I really began to dig into this concept a little bit further. And I use the law of gravity, for instance. If you climb onto the Empire State Building and you feel like, man, I can fly. Well, the reality is that if you jump, gravity is going to take you down.
Which is a principle.
It's a principle, and it won't change. It's feelings change, but like laws, they're inflexible. They don't have feelings. Gravity doesn't care whether you feel like you can fly or not. It has no interest in how you're doing today, and that's the way that God created the universe. And I feel like oftentimes we forget those things. We allow ourselves to be our moods to change based on how we feel, and the reality is that life doesn't really care about that.
Right.
The universe doesn't really care how you feel. The principle of sowing and reaping. The Bible says that whatever a man sows, he shall reap.
Right.
And that's a reality. If you sow good seed, you can expect to have some type of a good harvest.
Right.
But you can't reap where you did not sow. And so if you're not putting the time in to do something that you feel in your heart that you want to do, you can't pray and say, Lord, help me achieve this. I mean, you can, but I think a lot of times people are waiting on God to do something, and God is waiting on you to plant seed. He's waiting on you to get busy, doing the things that, you've been created to do. And so instead of spending time praying, you should be spending time planting.
That's good.
And there's nothing wrong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with prayer. It's important because I think on some level it helps people get prepared to plant. But you can't just use prayer and say, I'm going to pray my way, to this destination. It's not going to happen. You have to co-create, your destiny. You can't just sit there and allow it to appear like magic. It doesn't work like that. God didn't set the universe up that way. And so it's really been something that's been on my heart because I've been one of those types of people too who you spend time praying, you're like, Lord, Lord, and it's like nothing's changing, and nothing changes until we get in the game. So I mean, there's so many principles. The law of like reproduction, for instance, you can't plant a pumpkin seed and get cucumbers, so you can't plant negativity and expect positivity to be a result. True. It just won't happen. True. I mean, the law says that it creates its own kind. Seed creates its own kind. Right. I mean, human beings don't procreate and have horses. Two human beings, join together. The seed fertilizes the egg, and another human life is the result. You're not having, two human beings don't have, a dog. It just doesn't happen. And so when I talk about these feelings and principles, we have to know what those principles are, and it takes faith in order to see them come to pass. Right. Because without faith, you don't activate any of the principles. Right. So I think one of the other things I talk about, Milt, is a farmer. Let's think about it. A farmer gets up every morning. It's cold, it's dark, to go out and to work the land. You think a farmer wants to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go out and work the land? No. I mean, but he gets up anyway because he knows that if he doesn't get up, there's going to be no harvest. I mean, and so we have to learn to overcome those feelings, not deny them, but we have to use, our brain, our mind to understand that you're not going to reap anything if you're not sowing something.
And let me ask you this. So as we, as humans, we a lot of times are driven so much by our emotional, our feeling state, our senses, those 5 senses, and that is the temporal part of who we are versus, the more eternal part is as there's laws, there's principles that were placed on this earth way before you and I were even born or conceived or thought of, that we just need to abide by in order to see some success in our life. I mean, it's not hard. Like you said, if a farmer can bypass his feelings and emotions, knowing that a harvest is on the other side of his action and his work and his care for details and just repetition, then you and I, without having a farm, can find something that we can go towards and see that there's a harvest on the other side. That would, when that alarm clock goes off, proverbially at 4:30 in the morning, we get up because we know there's something more for us to do. There's something on the other side of our action, and it may be for a temporary moment, it may be for a season, but there's something that we need to be pushing towards. And I think that's so amazing what you just brought up and really connect some dots for me to understand that what is it that I need to be thinking about as a harvest, and what are you, people that are listening, what do you guys think about what's your harvest that you want to have in your life? And I think Frank we're trying to really help you understand that emotions and principles, there's an opposing force that wants you to really live by what you see versus what you believe, or by your faith. And that's where you're saying that you can't see the principles, you can't touch them, you can't hear the laws, but they're there. And it's taking our belief system and then I'll start to obey to those principles and those laws. Am I right about that?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, these laws, you can't violate them and expect something good to happen. Here's another concept, about the feelings and the laws. I oftentimes, people ask, if there was a God, why would he allow bad things to happen? And the truth is that the things that happen, some things that happen to us right now are the harvest of things that have happened generations ago. It has nothing to do with what you or I have done. It's got everything to do with what people have done for us. But here's the beauty. The beauty is that we can make decisions, choices to reverse those things. We don't, just because things happen doesn't mean that we have to take them hook, line, and sinker. I give you a prime example. I wrote a book about my life story, and I could have taken that life and just accepted it. Yeah, did I make mistakes along the way? I did, as a young man who was immature, who didn't know the things that I know today. But I know that at some point in time, I rejected what those feelings were trying to tell me. Those feelings were trying to tell me, look, man, you come from the wrong side of the tracks. You don't have a fighting chance. You might as well quit. And if I would have accepted those feelings that came, and just, said, hey, this is just my lot. I mean, it's what was given to me. Then I would have stayed where I was. But I decided to reject that. And I began to say, you know what? Hard work, it pays off. Hard work pays off. And look, here's the thing. I think what happens is a lot of times we get caught comparing how hard we have to work compared to what other people have to work. And some people they've been blessed with great opportunities, even though they didn't sow anything. Someone in their family lineage sowed, and they happen to reap a reward for it. True. I think there's a scripture in the Bible that says you will reap where you have not sown. Jesus was saying you will reap where you have not sown. That can be a blessing and a curse. You can reap terrible circumstances where people have sown just negativity and anger and insecurity, and the result is that you have difficult situation that you have to overcome. But when it comes down to it, Milton, we have choices. We have choices to overcome those feelings. We have to have that vision. in order to see beyond, the feelings, because the battle is really, it's in the mind. It's in the mind. And until you will become what you believe, what you think. And that mind it's the most fertile land in the universe. It's the most fertile land in it because whatever you plant in it that is the harvest you're going to reap. If you're going to, I had a long conversation with my 8-year-old daughter about this one morning before we went into church. Her and I were just sitting in the car, and my son was sick, and my wife was home with my son. So my daughter and I went to church together, and we set out before church even started. We sat in the car for like 15 minutes talking about, our thoughts and understanding that we are what we think. And so we need to think on things that are good, that are positive, and when negative things come to bombard your mind, to find a way to grab them and stop them. It doesn't always look, we're imperfect. And so there are times where, it just gets the best of us until we can get out of the situation, check ourselves and say, whoa, man, I went way too far there. I just allowed that negative thought just to get a hold of my mind and run. But, when we can become more conscious about the fact that our thoughts are what create our feelings, and our feelings oftentimes create our actions. And when we can catch the thought, then we can check the feeling and we can respond appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Right. Love it. And I want to back up real quick. And you're talking about choices that you and I, anyone, we all have. Humanity has. We all have choices, and that's the beauty of the human will that our Creator God has given us. We have a will that we can choose things. And I was talking to this group of teens, and I was like, you know what? It just the revelation hit me is that we can easily decide something. You and I I can easily decide to be a NASCAR race driver. I could easily decide that today. Now, each and every day, I have to obey that decision or reject that decision by the choices we make. So choices are basically a mirror that we look into every day and say, you know what? Hey, you made a decision to do this thing. What are you going to do? Are you going to go left or are you going to go right? And are you going to reject the decision or are you going to obey or be obedient to that decision? And I think that's where you and I were talking about is our decision, our will. Like you rejected the thoughts, you rejected the past that you have and decided to change something. You say, you know what? I'm deciding to go a different road. I'm deciding to climb out of this pit and do something with my life. And I'm sure, Frank, for you, each day was not the easiest of choices. There were days in your own life and my own life that we have to make these choices. Sometimes they're very small, but incrementally make big things, or sometimes the choice is very big to line up with that decision that we have to make. And I think that's something really key in for a lot of people is really decide. It's easy to make the decision. Make a decision today to be the best person you can be, to be a leader, to own that business, to lose that weight, to have a great marriage. But when the choices come, when you have to line up with that decision, it's one of those, the balances of life and death. It's in our hands. It's in our tongue. It's in our mouth. It's in our thoughts. It's in those little things, those boundaries we have to place around ourselves to put us in that bubble of the right choices, the right decisions that lead us to greatness. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that, buddy. Yeah. Thank you.
There's Apostle Paul in the Bible. He says, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. I tell young people all the time that there was a time when I was young and immature, and I allowed my circumstances to dictate my actions because I responded emotionally to what was happening around me, and even happening in me on some level. But when I began to become more aware about, the fact that my circumstances don't dictate my actions. If they do, it's because I'm caught in emotion. There comes a point in time where you have to allow your actions to dictate your circumstances. And that is like getting rooted in concepts, in principles and laws that are inflexible, that give you the greatest opportunity to succeed. If you wake up every single day and you have a goal in mind and you work hard each day trying to achieve that goal, I'm going to tell you, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you. But if you waffle, if you wake up and you allow yourself to say, man, I'm tired today, man, I don't feel like going. I'm not saying you're not going to get there, but you are going to be on the long road. And we're human. We're human. And that's why it's important to have conversations like this, to be involved and to have relationships with people who get that, because they remind you, and it stays with you for a while, and you begin to respond accordingly so that you get the things in life that you want. Because none of us, Milton, are able to do this life on our own. I don't care how much wisdom you have. If you are not surrounded with people who can help you remember who you are and what you committed to, you are bound to suffer on the long road. Not saying you won't get there. It just will be harder. And when you go on the long, hard road, you have a greater opportunity of falling off. There's a greater probability that you'll fall off because in this human experience, we hate pain. We do not like pain. The body does not like pain. We don't like to feel pain. But when we allow our minds, and to control us as opposed to our emotions, we tend to be able to respond the correct way and get the prize. We're able to hurt for the prize. We're able to feel the pain and still move toward the prize.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, sir. Now, we're about 30 minutes or so into this, but I wanted to ask you this. So, Frank coached me. If I really want to understand how to really, really believe about these principles and laws, and maybe override or choose different emotions and feelings, what do I need to do in the morning? What do I need to do the next day to really start to align myself with the principles of life versus being driven by my feelings or emotions?
I think one of the things is that you have to get alone. You have to get alone. You have to meditate on principles, so that you are always aware of them. Because if you're not aware of them, if you're not consciously reminding yourself that they exist, you'll go into default mode. And default mode is protect myself from pain, protect myself from the potential to be embarrassed, the potential of failing. And I'm here to tell you that failing is part of success. Pain is part of the success process. You won't, if you don't experience pain, then you really don't know what success is. You haven't pushed yourself. You have left so much on the table, and success is between you and you. is not between you and anyone else. It's not based on what you've achieved and what people are telling you that you have done. People could tell me, oh man, you've done this, you've done that. And if you just take that in, you can get complacent, because you feel like you've satisfied on some level, that, how do I say it? You've satisfied your potential, but you really haven't, because only you know if you have more to give. You can't base it based on what people tell you. And so you got to spend time alone. You got to be meditating on, who are you? What were you created to do? You got to be willing to walk the journey alone at times. Man, that is the hardest thing in the world to do. I mean, you got to break away from the pack. People think there's security in numbers, but I'm here to tell you that, the truth is that you can get a false sense of security because everybody's going in the same direction. But the truth is you can all get slaughtered. And so it's okay to go in a different direction and to be on your own. You got to have strong ego strength. I mean, and that's not to be mistaken as being egotistical. It's to say that you've got to have that inner strength to know that you are doing the best that you believe for yourself, and that even if you are on your own, it's okay. And I'll give you a prime example, Milton. When you begin to walk on the path of your true destiny, I'm going to tell you something. The people around you, they'll be the first ones that you'll hear the crickets. Because the minute that you start stepping into your destiny,
right,
people get uncomfortable because they view you in a certain light. And so it's like, all of a sudden you're like, where did my friends go? Where did my family go? The ones, who I relied on. I'm not saying that people don't love you. They don't want you to succeed. It's just, you've made people feel uncomfortable. You've gotten outside of people's box, and they want you in the box because they know what to expect. And so it goes even along the lines with Jesus. He went around performing miracles, and the minute he came back to his own, town where he was born and raised, and people were like, he's the Messiah. They saying he's performing all these miracles. Mm-hmm. You're the carpenter's son. I mean, now all of a sudden you're the savior of the world. No, I knew you when you were a snotty-nosed kid. And so, I mean, the reality is this, that Jesus said that he performed very few miracles in his hometown, because he said, even in a prophet's, hometown or own home, does a prophet get no honor? And it's not because it's not that people, don't love you. They see you in a different light. And so when you start taking that journey and the people around you fall away, you have to understand that new people will come into the picture, because they don't have these preconceived notions about who you should be. When you start to break away from the pack, and all of a sudden it's like, no, don't go. They want you to be safe. They're afraid that you might get hurt. They're afraid that, you might do something that can jeopardize your safety. But every hero must go on a journey. And a lot of times it's you must leave familiar behind and go into a new land. And in that new land, there are going to be new people who are going to see you for truly who you are, not who they want you to be.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Frank. You've been wonderful today. Hey, guys, when you're really thinking about it, principles versus feelings. We have a choice each and every day to abide by the principles and laws of life that God created, long before we even were conceived or thought of, or we have a choice to abide by the feelings and emotions and be driven by that and miss out on the greatness and the destiny that you and I have. I want to encourage you today to be the best you can be and let tomorrow as the sun shines be even better than today. Thank you very much. You want to say anything as we close out, Frank?
Just wish everyone, the best. Always give your best for yourself. And be willing to go it alone if you have to. In the end, you'll convert people when you know what you have in the inside of you and you keep going towards it.
Very well, very well. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.